I guess this is hero. And today I'm going to be talking about a Jupiter Mahadasha, okay? Or any guru, Pratyanta Dasha or Antardasha in general, okay? So what does Jupiter represent at a gist? It represents two things, Sagittarius mainly and Pisces, okay? Which Sagittarius, as we know, represents, religious or spiritual learning, you could say in general, right? To take you more towards, an elevated state or, enlightenment, you could say. And then Pisces represents what? Like detachment, okay? Especially detachment from all the stuff that we need to detach from all the garbage so that, we can achieve moksha. Because this is the two main agendas, right? Notice how I did not say Jupiter represents, gaining all this money and, having your perfect life partner come in your life, all this kind of stuff, okay? These could be, I guess you could say, side effects or symptoms of what the main lesson of what Jupiter is trying to teach you, okay? But what I just said is the main lesson, okay? If anybody's telling you that in Jupiter you're going to get rich and, the perfect person's going to come blindly without looking at your chart, is selling you a bunch of nonsense, okay? Or they're telling you fiction, okay? Now, we need to understand why this is happening, right? So if we look at the Vimshotri Dasha system, we have to look at the flow, right? There's a certain order all the time, and it goes Rahu, Jupiter, then Saturn, okay? So after Jupiter is Saturn, which Saturn represents what? Establishing discipline and, karmic fulfillment on the things that we need to do in this life, right? So Jupiter is all about, you could say, gaining the wisdom or learning the things we need to do and detaching from whatever we need to detach from so that we can do the stuff that Saturn wants us to do, right? That's why the last four signs in the zodiac is Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, right? They own the last four, but they work together, and Jupiter Dasha comes before Saturn because Jupiter's Mutrikona, Sagittarius, comes before Saturn signs, okay? So the whole focus of Jupiter is, you could say, to prepare from Saturn. Now, Rahu comes before Jupiter, okay? And I know a lot of you guys who are watching this video are probably at the end of your Rahu, right? Or you're still caught up on something in your Rahu, something like this. So Jupiter's other agenda is, or part of its agenda, it's also not only preparing for Saturn, but, learning from whatever we experienced in Rahu, right? And I have a video on both Rahu and Saturn Dashas, but basically Rahu represents what? We were trying to fulfill our, desires, you could say, right? And we did fulfill our desires based off of, the karmas that we had going into this birth, right? But hopefully at the end of Rahu or throughout the Rahu, or even now we could take, the Jupiter to do this, that, we see that, okay, yeah, our soul has certain desires, but our ego is always going to get attached to how these desires are fulfilled, right? And that attachment to chasing our ego desires is an endless chase, and it's going to just lead to frustration. And, hopefully throughout this process, we see that everything materially, okay, that the lower three chakras represent, which is, physical enjoyment, emotional and superficial mental pleasures, are just, an illusion, right? It's not gonna lead us anywhere long term, right? So that's what's going on here. So Jupiter, it's trying to learn in this period and detach, we can say, right? Now, it is a benefic, right? And, some stuff can go well, right? It's not Ketu, right? Where Ketu and Jupiter are both trying to, head towards enlightenment, moksha, all this kind of stuff, learn the things we need to know, detach and all this stuff. But Ketu's doing it in a much more harsh way usually, right? And disclaimer, I'm speaking on in general, right? You have to look at your chart to see what's going on specifically in, different areas of your life. But Ketu, it's like in general, it'll do it very harshly, right? So like if you have, some distractions or something, to really, go, towards, the truth, based off of your past life karmas, usually it'll say, hey, look, you know what? You've had this distraction for so long, so many lifetimes. We need to let it go right now, right? But Jupiter, it's not as harsh, right? It won't just remove things, very quickly based off of so that you can achieve its agenda, right? It'll usually do it in a little bit more of a, nice way, right? And that's why Jupiter kind of represents, good luck and stuff like this, right? So it could bring things in your life to help you learn, right? It could. So this is why, so I just gave you the example of Ketu kind of doing it in a harsh way and Jupiter kind of doing it in a good way, right? We need to understand that the four most, spiritually, conventional houses in a horoscope, they all kind of represent, spiritual learning in a sense. But the four most extreme spiritual conventional houses are 5, 8, 9, and 12, right? And 8 and 12 are, the worst dustana. So they're kind of teaching us in a bad way. 5 and 9, which is also, the Jupiter's the Karaka of these two houses, kind of represent, spiritual enlightenment in a more positive or a good way, or, what we deem as more positive or good, right? So this is kind of what Jupiter is trying to show us at a gist, right? That, okay, its main agenda is the two things I said, right? Which are Sagittarius and Pisces, learning and detachment. But if things need to happen in our life to kind of take us down this path of, learning and detaching, truly to help us realize the truth a little bit more, Jupiter will give it to you, okay? But its main agenda is not to fulfill desires, right? Its main agenda is not to, get you rich and, do all this material things, right? That's not its agenda. It's doing this to do the things that I just said, which is, learning and stuff like that, right? Now, here's a catch. So I just said, things can go good in your life, but its whole agenda is to teach you, okay? Why am I telling you this? Because I know a lot of you guys are either at the end of your Rahu Mahadasha, and, your Rahu Mahadasha was not pleasant, okay, especially maybe the end, or you're at the beginning of your Guru, but you're still kind of caught up with whatever happened in your Rahu, right? And even the people who are at the end of your Rahu, you could still very well be just as caught up when your Jupiter starts, right? Just because your Jupiter starts does not mean that everything is just going to be all fine and dandy and that, you're going to forget about everything that happened in your Rahu, right? It could very well be that, let's just say you had some breakup, right? At the end of your Rahu. It could very well be that when your Jupiter starts, you can get, a good person. And even if, you can't handle that good person, you can get multiple good people, okay, like throughout time. But you just won't care, right? Because you haven't detached and learned in the way that you need to, right? That's the whole sense. You can have, 50,000 good people come in your life when Jupiter starts. But if you're still caught up on some nonsense that happened, 3 years back or whatever, dude, what difference does it make, right? You're still going to be, not detached from whatever you're detached from. You haven't learned a thing, right? This is why, internal is always more important than external, okay? And the quicker you learn, the quicker you can enjoy, or you can, really bear the positive fruits of what Jupiter's trying to teach you, right? But if you're still trying to, like I said, Jupiter, it owns what? Sagittarius and Pisces. Pisces comes after Sagittarius, but Sagittarius is the main sign, right? So the sooner we detach and all the garbage from Rahu, the sooner we can genuinely learn. And like I said, Jupiter has those 9th house energies that, learning in Sagittarius represents. So the sooner we can, bear the fruits of that energy of Jupiter, right? But we need to detach from the Rahu stuff that happened, right? I gave the relationship example. Let's just say I'll give a material, like a money example, right? Let's just say, you had some kind of business failure, right? At the end of your Rahu, right? You could, let's just say you start another business in Jupiter, right? You could, there's a great opportunity to learn. This is a nice, boon that's given to you. But if you're still caught up on this failure that happened when Rahu ended or something like this, dude, what difference does it make? Your ego is still going to be just as hurt, and if we can't detach from that and move on, dude, the best things in the world can happen, but it's not going to matter, right? And also one other thing is that we have to get going on certain karmas when Saturn starts, right? So if we don't learn and we don't do all the things that we need to do, our Saturn's also going to get hampered, right? So we need to detach and we need to learn as much as possible so that we can, develop the mental habits properly so that when Saturn starts, we can get going on that. Because if we don't, our Saturn can be very harsh, okay? And if you know anybody that's been through Saturn, they'll attest to this, right? If their mind is not in the right place, when Saturn gets going, it'll try to really get you on board quickly, okay? To get going on whatever it needs to get going on, because Saturn owns 10th and 11th house, okay? Which is not a joke, okay? So we need to take each step of the way seriously, but spiritually based off of what it's trying to teach us, right? So Jupiter, like I said, detachment and learning. If good fruits come, that's great. Try to learn as much as you can from them, because like I said, 5 and 9 are still even though they're the most benefic houses, they're two of the most spiritual houses, right? And let's just say some bad stuff happened in Rahu, right? Let's just say 8 and 12 houses, right? Dustanas. We need to also learn from them and detach accordingly, right? And 8 comes before 9, right? So 8th house, Scorpio, represents, sudden changes to gain intuition. And then the 9th house represents what? Sagittarius, which is learning. So we learn from that intuition, right? That's why if you try to take a child to, a temple and they don't have any intuition, they're not going to learn anything, right? So 8th house energies are also very crucial to Jupiter as well, as in addition to, Jupiter naturally owning the 12th. So we need to use all the negative that happens either when the Rahu is going on or even when the Jupiter is going on itself, for those of us who haven't, fully detached and developed that intuition, to do those two things, right? To detach from all the bad and develop intuition from all the bad so that we can, learn whatever we need to learn, right? I hope this whole, story made sense. But like I said, Jupiter is a benefic, so it's doing it, in a much more positive way. Not like Ketu, where it'll just, it's like a very strict teacher, okay? Now, something to kind of go over really quickly is that if we look at, so Rahu, Jupiter, and Saturn go in order. Now, if we look at, the nakshatras they own, right? Rahu owns all four, for all the 3 nakshatras it owns, all 4 padas are in an air sign, right? And air naturally represents expansion. So that's why Rahu kind of has the ability to expand things. If it's something good, it'll really make it great. If it's something bad, it'll really make it horrible, right? Saturn, all 3 of its nakshatras, all 4 padas are in a water sign, right? So it's like a lot of people, waters, it could be deemed as the harshest sign, right? That's why 8 and 12, the 2 worst Dustanas, are both, have natural water energies, right? Scorpio and Pisces. So Saturn, it's like, you could say like doing the things that we need to do, right? Pisces, Uttara Bada Bada, it's like letting go of the things that we need to let go of, right? Cancer, when it comes to Pushya, it's the karmas that, with other people that we need to, do, right? But Jupiter is right in between them, right? But for all 3 of its nakshatras, 3 padas are in a air sign while the last one is in a water. So what does this mean? It means like, okay, it still has that ability to give us stuff like Rahu, right? Because 3 padas are in an air sign, but it's like the things that, we need, right? Rahu, it's right in the middle of the air sign, right? So it's like, it's just giving us stuff, based off of our karmas and, desires we have. But Jupiter, it's the last 3 padas of air signs, right? So it's like, okay, we're going to be a little bit more grounded about, the things that Jupiter provides, right? It's not just throwing things at us like Rahu, right? And we can get all caught up in the nonsense, right? It's giving us stuff groundedly, and it also owns the first pada of a water sign. So it's like, hey, look, we're getting stuff groundedly, and hopefully we learn that because we're not, just getting everything, we're getting, the things that we need to get truly. We're hopefully able to detach from all those, wild, extreme, desires that we have, those ego desires that, most likely are not possibly ever going to get fulfilled, okay? So we need to look at everything holistically, okay? Not just materially, if we were at the end of Rahu or at the beginning of our Jupiter, but still kind of caught up in the Rahu energies, just kind of, seeing, okay, this is kind of the stuff I'm going to get, right? Because this is all, chasing things materially, which is not what Jupiter wants us to do. Yeah, like I said, material, enjoyment or material, desires could come from Jupiter, right? But it's not its main purpose. Its main purpose is to take us towards the truth, okay? So I hope this all made sense. If you have any good questions or comments, as usual, you can let me know. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys later. So thank you for watching. Until next time.